In this video, I'm going to show you how to mix mortar for traditional limestone stone masonry. There's an optimal way to do this, and most people who are mixing mortar for the first time, who are beginners to stonework, tend to mix it too wet. You're going to need a trowel like this one, and a reliable cement mixer like this one. This model's actually from 1985, and it's been chugging away off and on ever since that time. My dad used this to build his stone house, which is 30 feet to the peak and a 9-foot tall basement, 2 feet thick. Every bit of mortar for all of that stonework was mixed in here, and now I'm using it for my own place. So you got to get one of those, and a wheelbarrow and a trowel, and the goal is to get mortar to look something like this. Fairly buttery, and yet with some stiffness to it. The idea is that you want to be able to work the mortar and smoothen it with trowels later in your stone structure, but you don't want it to be so soupy that it runs down the face of your stonework and looks ugly, deer fly, and just ruins the look of what you're trying to accomplish. So nice, buttery, thick, and yet workable mortar is the goal. That's what we'll be going for here. And to accomplish that, we're going to use two different kinds of cement. This is the tail end of a bag of St. Mary's Portland cement. I'm going to open this new bag soon. And then we're also going to use type S St. Mary's, also known as masonry cement. Masonry cement is more buttery and more workable with a trowel, but not quite as strong. And Portland cement hardens to much stronger. It's the stuff they use for concrete typically. So we're going to use a 50-50 blend of these two types to get the ideal combination of workable mortar, but also strong mortar. So first step is to add 2 to 3 gallons of water to your cement mixer, which we've already done. You can see the water's all dirty and foamy because we used that water to wash away the remains of our previous load of mortar that's sitting in the wheelbarrow right now. Once you have that water in the drum of the mixer, plug it in and get things rotating, and then we're going to start to add ingredients. So we'll take our shovel here and we'll start off by adding a full heaping shovel scoop of Portland cement. Just like that. I want to throw it in nice and deep into the drum of the mixer. Knock off any excess. And then we'll follow that immediately with a similar size scoop of masonry cement, or type S. And then we'll add some sand from this sand pile here. For every shovel scoop of cement that you add, you want to add 3 shovel scoops of that same size of sand. So we've added 2 shovel scoops of cement already. Just get rid of that grass there. That means we're going to add 6 shovel scoops of sand up until this point. Two, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now you can see the mixture's pretty soupy and some of it's dripping out. That's normal. We'll scoop that back into the mixer later, but it's still way too wet. So we're going to jump in and continue adding more ingredients in that same ratio, starting with another full shovel scoop of type S cement. One way you can dry out the mixture is by taking sand from the top of the pile where the sun has dried it a little bit, as opposed to the underlying sand, which is a little more damp. So it's starting to get a little more solid now, but you can see it's still really soupy, way too soupy to work into stonework. So we're going to add some more ingredients. So to follow the pattern, we'll now add a scoop of not type S, but Portland cement. And I won't actually use the shovel in this case because we're coming near to the end of this bag now. And that's about a shovel scoop that's left in that bag. So I'm just going to pour the remainder of this bag right into the mixer, save a little effort. Can't be afraid to get dirty doing this kind of work. Now we'll add 3 large shovel scoops of sand once again. Getting down into the roots and grass, so I got to be careful with that. That's 2. And before I add the 3rd one, I'm actually looking in the drum and I can see it's way too dry now. It's forming those balls and things. So I'm going to take our hose here and add a little bit of water, squirting in at the back. Now it's easy to overdo it, adding water to a partially mixed load of mortar like this. A little water goes a long way. So you want to squirt just a little at a time and then give it a few minutes to see what effect that water has. Just like this. Right at the back. And then we'll wait a little. There's kind of a delayed reaction to adding moisture where it works its way through the entire load. So it's better to add less water and have to add more later than add too much water. So I've given that first squirt of water a couple minutes. It's still obviously way too dry with all those balls freely floating around. What you want is one fat-looking buttery mass as opposed to all those small chunks. So we'll squirt in a little bit more water right at the back. And you can see the water's starting to have an effect. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to see what it's really done, but you can see it's going from lots of individual little chunks to more solid. And actually, if anything, that might be a tad too wet now. But that's okay, because I didn't add, if you remember, my final shovel scoop of sand yet to bring it up to the correct ratio. So I'm going to get some nice dry sand here from the back of the pile. My last shovel scoop. And yeah, sure enough, just before I add this, if you take another look, now it's looking too soupy again. Definitely too wet to work with. So you can see there's a very fine line between just the right amount of moisture and too much. So we'll throw in this sand and hope that that corrects things. Now I'll check back with you in a couple minutes, and hopefully we'll have some mortar that's looking as it should, and then we'll dump it into the wheelbarrow. So it's been a few minutes now, and you can see that the mortar's looking much closer to how it should look. Like I said, it has that conglomerated, floppy sort of look where it's mostly one solid mass. And so in a couple minutes I expect it'll be ready for us to dump, but there's a little bit of dry ingredients still clinging to the side of the drum. So that's where this large trowel comes in, bricklayer's trowel. I'm just going to scrape some of that back and make sure that all of that, or as much of it as possible, makes it into the mixture before we dump. I'm going to reach back here and just scrape some off of the fins on the inside of the drum. There we go. Now, as it mixes more, if anything, I'd say this is still looking actually a little on the wet side, especially since in the sun, like how we're working today, when you start laying beds of mortar and putting stone on it, the sun tends to bring water out to the surface of the mortar and make the surface area harder to work and more soupy. So just going to sprinkle in a little more cement. We don't have to necessarily follow the exact ratio right at the end here with these fine little bits, because the overall mixture will still be quite close to that optimal ratio. Cement has a lot of drying power, so just maybe 1/3 of a shovel scoop here. We'll just toss into the back. And maybe a similar amount of dry sand. Just like that. And now, I expect in a couple minutes, 3 to 4 minutes or so, this will be optimal. So it's been 3 or 4 minutes, and I'd say this load of mortar is optimally mixed. You can see that it's got that buttery, stuck together kind of look, which is exactly what we want to see. So we're ready to dump it into the wheelbarrow on top of our other load to make one giant wheelbarrow load. So I'll just take the tension off the mixer here, lift this up, and slowly, in a controlled manner, lay it down on the side of the wheelbarrow and start to scoop it out. And the idea is to get it out as quickly as possible, because the drum's actually spinning on the edge of the wheelbarrow right now, somewhat wearing it down, but it is a steel wheelbarrow and quite tough. So the trick here is to scoop as much as you can, as quickly as you can, so as not to waste any, which can be quite hard to do as the thing is rotating. There we go. You don't have to be too thorough getting it out of the drum, because we're going to rinse it down for a future load. So final step before we head over to the build site is to rinse down the inside of the mixer while it's still spinning, just so none of that remainder of mortar hardens in there. You want to have a good high pressure hose for this. And this water will be the beginning of our next load of mortar. Get our 2 to 3 gallons in there, and then we'll just let it mix for a couple minutes. And I'll also rinse down the outside, because that got a little mortar on it. After all, we have to keep these nearly 40-year-old cement mixers looking their best. And I'll just give my hands a little rinse too, because I did get some mortar on them. Mortar is technically a little corrosive, so you don't want to leave it on your hands too long if you can help it. But as any stonemason will tell you, it's sometimes inevitable. There, and that's been spinning long enough now to shake loose the last little bits of mortar. So we'll unplug it and we'll wheel our somewhat oversized load of mortar over to the build site here. And that's how you mix mortar for traditional limestone stonemasonry. Thanks for watching. Hope you found the video interesting and helpful. If you did, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Cabin in the Woods. Hopefully I can get this on this ramp here. There we go. See you next time.